People often wonder if networks are really essential for their day-to-day job. They're actually crucial. Networks are what allow you to generate new ideas, to get the information and support that you need, and to expand your influence. Networks enable you to offer more and have more impact. A network is a set of relationships that you depend on to get things done, to get ahead in your career, and to develop professionally. When I ask people how important it is to have a good network in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish, most people say that having a good network is really important to their capacity to get almost anything done. But when I ask them, how good is your network as it is today? What's its quality? Most of the time, they rate it much lower. Their networks are rarely ever as good as their importance. Now, why is that? The first thing that people will tell you is time. It takes time to build a good network. It takes time to maintain a network, and we're all busy. And so the networking, which is always a longer-term time horizon, is going to fall by the wayside. When you dig a little bit deeper, part of the issue is that it's not a top priority because we tend to think that it's not part of the day job, when in fact, our networks are just a critical part of how we get things done and how we develop ourselves. One of the things that holds us back from really growing and developing our networks is that we just don't know how. It's a learning process, and it feels kind of inefficient at first because you don't really know what's going to pay off, where to invest your time, what's just kind of exchanging business cards, as opposed to really developing the relationships that are going to help you and are going to help them. One of the biggest misconceptions that we have about building networks is that relationships should form spontaneously. We shouldn't have to work at it too much. You click, you like each other, you want to learn more about each other, and going about it in any more of a strategic or methodical way is sort of calculating, maybe even a little sleazy, kind of using people. The problem with this way of thinking is that when you just let your relationships form spontaneously, you're going to get a network made up of people who are just like you and made up of people who you're going to bump into very naturally because you work in the same place, you share the same external activities, the same hobbies, you live in the same neighborhood. And decades of research show, in fact, that left to our own devices, that is exactly what we produce. Networks that are just like me, convenience networks that are never going to give us the diversity of ideas, of inputs, of information, of resources that we need to be effective and also to be helpful to the rest of our networks. Another big misconception that people have about building networks is that the most important relationships are the ones that are very close, high trust, people that they've known for a very long time. And those relationships are really important, but there's a lot of strength in what we call weak ties as well. Our relationships with people that we don't know that well yet or that we don't see very often. A very famous study showed the importance of these weak ties by showing that those are the connections through which we get jobs. Not because the people who are close to us don't want to help, but because they have the same information that we do. Our more distant relationships, the more extended network, is really important because those people are connectors, bridges, to other organizations, to other social circles that we don't have access to directly. And it's by connecting to them that we extend the reach of our more immediate networks. There are three kinds of networks: operational networks, personal networks, and most importantly, strategic networks. The first is what I call your operational network, and all of us have these. These are the relationships that we have with people at work that allow us to get today's work done. The second kind of network is what I call your personal network. These are your friends, family, maybe colleagues who no longer work at your organization, people you went to school with. It's discretionary, and it's made up of people you like to hang out with informally. The third kind of network is the kind of network most people are less aware of. I call it your strategic network, and it's really a blend of your external and in your internal relationships, but it's those connections that allow you to understand what's going on in your business or professional world, to bring those ideas into the organization, to sell them to people who might not be inside your immediate group, and to also find out about the opportunities that allow you to further your career. Great strategic networks have three qualities. I call them the BCDs of strategic networking. That is, they are broad, they're connective, and they're dynamic. Broad means that you connect to all different kinds of people and not those who are just like you. So across departments, across companies, across levels, people who are more senior, more junior, peers, simply a broad range of people. Connective means that you're able to reach out beyond your immediate circle of people you know well. Through your contacts, you're able to reach out to different departments, to different organizations, to different professional specialties, and likewise, they're able to reach out through your network to people and groups that they wouldn't be able to connect to otherwise. And dynamic simply means that your network is growing as you grow, that you're not spending year upon year always seeking information and advice from the same usual suspects. You're meeting new people and bringing them into your network. Building a strong strategic network is challenging for anybody, but it can be particularly challenging for women. If you're finding it difficult to network outside your operational circle, that's only normal if you're working in a male-dominated environment, because your male colleagues are going to be building relationships with people who are just like them on one important dimension, while you don't have that basis of similarity. If that's the case, don't think that you're having difficulty because you're shy or because you're not good at building networks. It's just simply harder for you to create that common ground because you're working across one more dimension of difference. In particular, when you're trying to network up to people who are more senior than you and outside your group. All of this means that you need to start early and take a long-term view in building your network. I've found in my research that men's work and social networks tend to overlap a lot more than women. So for example, my male colleagues might work on a project together and then go off and play tennis and see each other over the weekend for a barbecue. Whereas my women colleagues often see a whole different bunch of people outside of working hours. The research that shows that women's work and personal networks tend to overlap less than men's also shows that there's an interesting pattern. That overlap becomes less and less as women start to have children, and their personal network starts to become much more focused on kids, on school, on family, and starts to become more and more different from the work-related network. That's also when the time crunch comes in, where you're trying to make calculations. Is this networking event going to be worth the trade-off of not being home for dinner or home for homework or whatever other responsibility you might have? Here, what's important to keep in mind is that you don't need to do every networking event. You choose the ones that you think are going to be the most important, and then you fully invest in a smaller number of them. You attend, you speak out, you stay for the networking part, you make sure you're meeting a few new people, but you focus and invest on a few. Now, why is this important? First of all, it's more time efficient when your networks overlap. You can plug your ideas, you can get the gossip at the same time as you're exercising. But the reason it really matters is that we come to trust the people we've gotten to know best when we know them personally. And that's what gives us the confidence to put them up for a stretch assignment or a big promotion. Because networking across differences is somewhat more methodical, it can sometimes feel to women as inauthentic, lining people up so that you can use them, focusing on what value they bring to you. One of the things that helps is focusing instead on the value that you bring to your network. And once you start to realize that value that you bring to your teams and to your organization, it starts to feel more natural and more authentic. The big mind shift happens when you realize it's not just what your network can do for you, but what you can do for the people that you're connected to as a result of the network that you have developed. There are two kinds of strategies that will help you grow your network. One is to think about what activities you can invest in, both inside and outside your organization. The other is to think about who you know already and what are the ways in which they connect you to people and groups that you don't know yet. The best place to start is to think about what projects, task forces exist in your organization that you might sign up for in order to get broader exposure beyond your immediate group. And then, of course, there's lots of extracurricular activities that you might consider getting involved in to broaden out your circle. A professional conference, a seminar. Most people I know approach the idea of going to some networking event with dread. Nobody thinks it's any fun. They're wondering how to go about it, how to talk to people they don't know. One of the things I recommend is just simply walking in with an attitude of curiosity, like who is this person? What can I get to know about them? What would be fun for me to learn about them? What would be fun for them to learn about me? And all of a sudden it becomes much less of a chore and something that makes it more likely that you are to make a connection that matters. Once you start showing up, because it really is about showing up and signing up, one of the things that I recommend is you start thinking about how to take a more active role. So for example, instead of attending the conference, why don't you sign up to organize a panel, to interview a speaker, to speak yourself? It might seem like a lot of work, but the payoff that you get in return is so much broader because people will know who you are, they'll know what you're interested in, and will reach out more naturally. The second tried and proven way of expanding your network is simply to ask the people that you know to make introductions, to make referrals, to connect you to people they know, to members of their network. Now, to use this method effectively, sometimes it takes a step back for you to really think about who do I need to know? Who are people and groups that are really relevant for me, especially as I move forward in my career? Identify 2 or 3 people who you'd really like to get to know, and then figure out through whom can you get to know them. Ask for those introductions, and then follow up. One action you can take, just get started. Think about that person you've been meaning to call that you've recently met, or the association you've been meaning to join up. Do it now, get started, and you'll see where it takes you.